guess you were running Florida Championship Wrestling when it was a development territory for WWE. That was the last big thing you were doing in the business. How did you get that position? I know you had a wrestling school before, and that seems like it would have been a huge job.
Okay, it was. And this is how I got it. I was a road agent, and I was a road agent for about 5 years. And I've been bumped up and bumped up and bumped up to where I was doing the reports. Pretty soon I was even doing settlements on the buildings in the cities. And I was getting tired of it, to be honest with you, Hannibal. You know, the business and the road took a lot out of you. And I totaled 44 years between wrestling and the management side so far as being a road agent and owning FCW. So I went to Johnny Ace at the time, who was the talent relations, and I said, you know, I'm tired. I said, man, you're sending me to Europe, you're sending me on all the international tours. I said, you know, it's like a babysitting job half the time with these guys and girls. I said, you know, I got to do something else. And he said to me, he says, well, you always like teaching, you want to take over the developmentals. And I said, well, you got Deep South and you got OVW. What about them? And he goes, I'm going to shut them both down, and I'm going to put it all in your lap in Florida if you want it. And I said, yeah, give it to me. Because I thought I was going to be home every night. Anyway, what I did was everything was in my name. All the liability, all the responsibility, all of the debt, everything, all of the insurance, everything that had to do with that business was under Steve Keirn, Inc. Nothing to do with WWE. Couldn't even use their logos. I couldn't use anything that associated with WWE because it was all supposed to be my entity. And that was just to protect their liability. And so I recreated the Florida territory where I grew up. I started running the towns that I worked in when I was young and a kid, armories. I started the center of the state instead of the ocean sides, and instead of the beach towns. I was running like in the middle. I was running small towns where nobody had any entertainment. And I started compiling a good schedule to where they were working 3 to 4 nights a week in live events. Because to be honest with you, wrestling is an opinion. Everybody's got one about what it is. Mine is the way you learn is experience. You can be in a gym all your life going through moves, but that doesn't teach you how to work in front of an audience. You need to get out there and see how to control audiences, how to take your hand and put it on the volume and turn them up, turn them down, shut them off. I mean, you know, you need to be in control and understand that that's more important than fancy moves. Now the whole business is altered so much that everything is about movement. In my era, it was about emotion. You took them on an emotional roller coaster, and regardless if they thought wrestling was real or not, they got on board. Whereas they'd stand up, scream, yell, they'd want to riot, they'd want to fight. I mean, people would be so emotionally moved. So with all of that going on, I just altered it to FCW. I was in total control. The only thing they controlled is who they hired and who they fired. I refused to fire people or hire. I didn't want to have that responsibility. And I said, you know, I'll run this territory, but you got to let me run it like I know how to run Florida. I was one of the last of a dying breed that started in Florida and ran Florida with Dusty and Gordon and Mike Graham in the early 90s. And now I'm just recreating it again. But I had the backing money with WWE, so I knew I could take it farther, and I expanded. I started off with flea markets, bars. I started any place I could gather people together to watch because nobody had a name. So I'm trying to draw money on no names. So what I did as a booker, I would book matches. I'll give you an example. I had Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, Dolph Ziggler, all of them on the same card, but their names weren't even up there. I would have triple threat match, battle royal, mixed tag match. I would have them in names of title matches or just gimmick matches, so that would draw people in. And then I postered towns instead of relying on advertising in radio and TV and newspaper. I would have posters made, and I would make the talent go out and put posters up all over the towns, and gave a constant reminder for people that would see it for a week, 2 weeks at a time to come. And then by the time I got it going really good, pretty soon now we don't have to do as much because we had a reputation, and they were starting to get the fact that what I was doing was developing talent for WWE. And so it was a grind, and I worked probably harder than I ever worked in my whole wrestling career because I was wearing way too many hats. I was promoting. I was running the concessions. I was driving the ring truck and trailer because I didn't trust anybody to drive my truck. I mean, I was going to make appointments with people in the buildings because I was the only name they knew in Florida from wrestling and trusted. I was opening up armories and places that had been shut down by indie groups that were paying off soldiers not to let other indie groups come in. So, it took a lot of work, and then I built it up to kind of like a situation where Vince asked me to give him two guys a year, and I'll be satisfied. I gave him 18 the first year, like 38 the second year. The third and fourth year, I was in the hundreds when they were mowing through the talent that I would send up there left and right, but guys were getting opportunities. So I was doing more than I needed to do, but it caught attention. It caught the attention that it was all mine. It was in my name. Everything was owned by Steve Keirn Inc. And I think that, probably just my opinion again, but I think that they saw that, hey, this is a pretty good thing. Maybe we should take this back over and only spend more money and enlarge it. And that's what they did. And they asked me if I wanted to move to Orlando and still be a part. And I said, no, I don't want to live in Orlando. There's two cities in the state of Florida that I won't live in, Miami or Orlando. But I'll go back and forth. And so I worked for a year going back and forth. And then they just said, well, if you're not going to move to Orlando, we're not going to renew your contract. And I go, thank you. Thank you. I'm done. I'm burned out, man. I've had so much. I'm so tired of seeing poor talent get to a level thinking they're going to make it and get cut for no reason. I'm so tired of listening to people cry on the phone because they don't know what they did wrong. I mean, I'm a compassionate guy. And anybody that does what I do, I've got respect for them. It's like, to me, I used to tell guys that come in there to be wrestlers, is when you step foot over that door's threshold, you've got my respect for having the guts to make that first step. Now, that doesn't mean, you're going to be on the top of my list forever, but I'm not gonna mistreat you. I'm gonna treat you like I'd want to be treated when I started. And I got kind of put down a lot for being way too nice because I was compassionate with the talent, So that's, it might be hearsay.
The last real star, I guess, WWE has been Roman Reigns, who was from FCW. What are your thoughts on him? And also, why do you think NXT hasn't really produced a star that's been able to eclipse Roman Reigns yet?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons, and this goes back to Steve's opinion. It's not a fact. But Roman Reigns was a second-generation wrestler. I had quite a few second-generation wrestlers. I had Harry Smith, Davey Boy's son. I had Jerry Briscoe's son, Wes Briscoe. I had Charlotte Flair. I had Natty Neidhart. I had, the Rotundo boys. I had the DiBiase boys. I had all these. Now, these are all friends of mine from my era. And so I'm kind of like watching their kids try to go through this, and I realize not all of them are cut out to be in the business because of political reasons, because of doesn't mean you can't be in the same business your dad was, but might not get to the level your dad was at. And I think with Roman, when he first came to me, he was kind of like, I don't really, care that much about this. He had been a football player, and then he had been diagnosed with cancer, and so he was on a second choice thing when he came to wrestling. And I kept telling him, I said, you got to be a little more aggressive. You can't just get in there and lay down and let people do stuff to you. You got to kind of like, hold your own in these things, and you got to kind of be a little bit of a prick sometimes just to keep yourself up. And so they'd listen to me, but it was it was one of those things where there's a lot of politics in this business and everybody knows it. And it's not something I'm making up. It's just that sometimes something your dad did might have affected what you're doing right now, even though you might be as good as your dad or better. And so I saw all of that. But what I had was a success thing going on is because that I was turning talent and I was driving them by so many matches and live events. They were learning, wasn't because of everything they learned in the gym. They had great trainers, handpicked. I handpicked Norman Smiley. Tom Pritchard came with me at the beginning, but I handpicked Norman Smiley, Joey Mercury, Ricky Steamboat. I had Terry Taylor. I had all of these guys that were, that I admired because that they were similar styles to mine. We had the same kind of concept of the wrestling business, same respect for it, and they had great trainers. And the thing happened is all of a sudden they wanted bigger and more. And sometimes when you're trying to develop talent, it's not having a roster of 120 people in there. It's having a comfortable roster of like 50 to 60 people, and that gives them more work. A lot of times guys don't get developed as quick like nowadays is because they're not getting as much experience. There's only so much time to showcase, and there's only so much time to give people matches. And if they get on somebody and they like somebody, that means that they're there every week. And, you get tired of seeing the same guy, or they're not having the same drive, and the others are losing their interest. And you can see it in their performances when they go to the ring. They're not fired up. I tried to fire talent up. I mean, I made them pay their dues. And I was the only guy. I'm the last guy that made anybody pay their dues. Well, maybe it was just driving and putting up cards, being gone all day to the town that they're going to go to in 2 weeks and postering it. Maybe it was setting up the ring. Maybe it was tearing down the ring. Maybe it was cleaning up the building afterwards. But I made them all work. I made them all do every job that they don't think about in wrestling, all the way down from set up, tear down, clean up, put back, whatever it is, because I wanted them to respect all the people that it takes to get that show on. And I knew I was getting to them because one of the things when they took it away, they said, well, you won't have to do no more towns and poster no more things, and I'm going like, so that's your big reward to get them away from me? I said, you're making a mistake. They don't pay no dues. They're just going to come to work, collect their check. And, when you pay to be in the wrestling business and you have to do something as effort for you to make it, you're going to want it more.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.